So I'll focus on context. My presentation is based on this context, the Guyana which pursues a sustainable green economic development path, utilizing its geostrategic position, its natural resources and human talent to propel its growth while conserving its natural capital for future generations and the global good. And the green economy is one in which we achieve improved human well-being and society, social equity, while significantly reducing environmental risk and ecological scarcity. Circumscribing all of this is what I feel many of us, we need to emphasize is national reconciliation, national security, and a national development plan, integrated development plan. This is not a lesson in geography, but showing you the comparative advantage that we have, English-speaking country in South America, with all these things going for us. And of course, a bridge to the north and our Caribbean brothers and further afield. Again, the President mentioned yesterday in his remarks the significance of being in the Guyana Shield with all the advantages of biodiversity, ecosystems, endemism, fresh water, etc. This is an area that we really have not been emphasizing as much as we should. And then there's the IRSA project, an initiative for the integration of infrastructure in northern South America. And you see these lines of communication which already exist. This is the paved road from Manaus going all the way up to Caracas, paved road coming all the way to Lethem, and we have a trail coming to Georgetown. Brazil having this northern Arctic project, and the paved road leading this way. The Oyapock River has already been bridged. They're looking at bridging this river here. And of course, we're speaking about bridging the Quarantine. And this year, the Brazilians are extremely interested, of course, in this providing an outlet to the Atlantic rather than 2,000 miles down the Amazon here. Some of the challenges we're still facing, of course, the insidious claim by Venezuela to the Essequibo. And here highlighted is Ancoco Island. This is the boundary which was established in 1934, 1938. And Ancoco Island here, of course, they claim the entire Essequibo. This is a military cantonment on the island here. And of course, the maritime space, particularly the sea space in which we have an abundance of resources, as you know. Our natural resources, as was pointed out yesterday, 85% of our country forested. But I've come to some of the challenges that we face. Here you have the pristine forest of Eurocrama, and here is a French company extracting heart of palm and shipping it to Paris. Value added, a lot of work has been done in the Forestry Commission to ensure that we are compliant with international best practice. As they say, from stump to the sale point, and tag, tree stumps are tagged, and you can trace, so the timber is traceable. Here we have a joint venture between Eurocrama and a local company, Farfan and Menz, with international partners, emphasizing the value-added timber, and this is in the Eurocrama. I don't know how many of you are going to Eurocrama. And the value-added products that come from this absorbed locally and the international market. The dilemma we have, or the challenge we have, is how do we extract minerals in this forested area? And many of the environmental challenges we have, as you will see, speak to the importance of environmental stewardship. The bauxite expansion program, this is in the Berbice River, Araima. And this is what you can see in the hinterland in terms of small scale and medium scale mining. It is environmentally destructive and has a very terrible footprint both on land and in the rivers. And this is something that we have to cope with. That's an example of Madia and Oko. All of these are small scale mining and land reclamation, land revegetation, before mining impacts in the Cayuga River. And this is what a dragger dredge looks like. It's 50 million Guyana dollars. It's manned by a crew of about 7 to 10 persons. and the cook on this vessel gets $2,000 US a month. As you see, that's this is an example of reforestation and revegetation using the Acacia magnum. And what you have are the large scale mining activity with a smaller environmental footprint. And this is Goldfields, the Canadian registered company operating at Aurora on the Cayuga River. A large-scale Marudi Mountain, again, this is a Canadian company, Romanex, Falcon Resources, about to commence operations in the south of Guyana. Don't worry about the text. What I want to highlight here is that credible regional assessments have indicated the difficulties we're going to have with climate change. This is an assessment from the Caribbean Planning for Adaptation for Global Climate Change, CPAC, and this is one from ECLAC, basically saying that at some point in time, our vulnerability on the coast in particular will require not only mitigation and adaptation, but possible relocation. And these are examples of what is happening. This is a photograph I took in 2008 of Shell Beach, and this is what it looks like now. And it's continuing. The cycle of accretion and erosion, coastal movement of mud shoals between the Amazon and the Orinoco. These are breakwaters. Many of you were children at the time will remember going out on the seawall, on Kelvin beaches and so on. In the old days, this is what all these areas now have become eroded. And the cost now of maintaining a sea defense, 1 kilometer is $2 million US. And we have a coastline of 270. This here gives you an example of the problems we have right in the city. This is a drone pass we had over East La Penitence, showing squatting on both banks of the canal and having to clear this. This is partly responsible for the drainage issues we have in the city. And these are examples of inundation, a combination of high tides and high intensity rainfall. Even in the interior, just about 3 weeks ago, we had this phenomenon of the Rio Branco at 28 meters, forcing water back into the Takatu and the Ireng and flooding low-lying areas in the Rupununi area. Right? And that's by Kirara Bridge, those of you who know the Rupununi. And this is what it looked like just about 10 days ago in the Rupununi, just outside of Latvia. What we are doing about it, conservation and restoration of our mangroves. Here you find work being done by NARI and the Sea Defense. I chair the board of NARI, and this is a very important component of NARI's work. Felicity to Chateau Margaux, aerial view of mangrove. What we found is, again, because of the high tides and the shoal movement, that what looks like a thriving growth of mangroves can easily be eroded in the twinkle of an eye. And we have to protect these mangroves using Spartina grass and geotechnic tubes here in order to build up the accretion, because mangrove will not thrive unless you have a certain elevation on the beach. Some of the work being done is stabilizing the East Demerara Water Conservancy, such as the construction of the Hope Canal here. What happens is that this 270 square miles of conservancy, when the water gets up to a certain level, if it overtops, it will flood the coast. So this is a relief canal. You open the 4-door sluice here and drain that water into the Atlantic. This was completed just about 2 years ago. New methodologies in agriculture. Because of flooding and frequent flooding of the floodplain and high water table, our ancestors, 3000 BC or 2000 before present, built these mounds by hand and planted on them. This actually is the reality in the intermediate savannas. And this is how they harvested fish. They dug these ponds when the water overtopped. It flooded here, fish were trapped, and they were able to survive. This is 3,000 years ago. What we're doing now is training persons in drip irrigation and shade agriculture. This gentleman here doesn't read or write, but he has 2 stalls at the border market and its take home at the end of the month is $2,000 US. We're also looking at import substitution, onions. We import a significant amount of onions, but if we can manage the crop and all the various pests, etc., then all we need is about 500 acres or 200 hectares of onions, and we will satisfy the local demand currently. The same with potatoes. And these are trials that we're doing in the Rupununi as well as on the coast. This is recently this was commissioned at Paramakatoi in the Highlands, drying tomato. Tomato is 90% water, and if you can dry the tomato and bring it out, it's easier logistics, and you can convert that then into powder and ketchup. This is an internal shot of the drying system using solar power, heating up panels. The air is filtered in to complement. In the rain season, you have a kiln, and the pipes you see here will pipe hot air. Women's groups getting involved in value-added cassava production and producing farine, starch, pinchies, casrib, of course. Peanut roasters, those of you who are involved in appropriate technology, there's a lot of room here for you in terms of appropriate technology. And of course, the old traditional method of stretching the matapi. The Brazilians tried to reproduce this in a factory and failed. And Yukukari, use of solar panels to pump water in overhead tanks, which are not in the slide, but also to produce lighting for the village. Here you have examples of large-scale farming at Santa Fe and at GR. And on the right here is water harvesting, because 6 months of the Rupununi is flooded and the other 6 months is dry. This is a private sector agency that actually built a berm here, and the water from this creek, the Perico Creek, is stored here, released through a spillway once it gets up to a certain level so the ecosystem is not damaged, but they have enough water from the year for cattle, sheep, etc. And they'll be going big into tambaqui production. This is the Santa Fe, where they're pumping water from the Ring River. You can see the use of tires here for the rise and ebb of the water. They pipe it through an aqueduct and then gravity flow into the rice field here. And this is on the border with Brazil. Here's another example of water harvesting. The same GR ranch has been commissioned to do this water harvesting for Napi village. They've completed it. This is the construction phase, and this is what it looks like after the last rains. And here you have the tambaqui fish ponds, modern approaches. And in drought situations where the arapaimos become stranded, they're actually volunteer groups that relocate them to other areas. The challenges of opening up the hinterland. We spoke about vulnerability on the coast. Well, miners have opened up routes into the hinterland. These have now got to be upgraded, and here you see examples of upgrading. This one goes to the Ikerku Plateau, and this one goes into the Upper Berbice River. You can actually drive with a car on this. But there you have the road leading from Karasabai, from Good Hope rather, going to Karasabai, along the edges of the mountains here. These are the southern Pacaraimas. Local initiative, this is a bridge over the Demerara River. This is the Demerara River source, just near to Canister Falls. That's what it looks like at the source. And these are what is called a Roman arch, timber over timber over timber, and then you can reuse this timber. Bartica, Rear Admiral Best, my colleague, has been tasked by the President with focusing the expansion of communication, mobile tower at Oriala on the border with Curtin, and here is what Latam looks like now, with the expansion, first the Chinese, with trade with Brazil, and now businessmen from the coast who are seeing opportunities for trade with Manaus, who has 2.5 billion people, with Bovista, and I know that Eric Phillips will be going through some of the 2030 vision with you later. These are some of the spectacular scenery we have in the hinterland, which are really untapped as far as potential for energy, even though we have concerns of the environmental impacts of reservoirs, etc. But you can have run of the river, and there are also good tourism sites. Protected areas, all the yellow you see here are Amerindian title land, and these are the protected areas: Shell Beach, Kaichor, Eokrama, the Kanku Mountains, and soon to be inducted the YY in the Deep South. You see it here, and it gives you an idea also of the topography. All of these rivers here, this entire area here is like a huge sponge. So water flowing off the mountains here form the basin which powers these rivers leading to the coast. The ones in the Mazruni, you have the Tipuis of Roraima, etc. here, and I mentioned earlier Bovista and so on. Eokrama, which is the flagship in terms of research. As you know, this was gifted to the Commonwealth as a crucible to be used for research purposes in terms of forestry, ecosystem services, and so on. There's a lot of room here for graduate and postgraduate type of research, and of course, collaboration with the local communities in terms of managing the forests and the ecosystem. This is the YY country I showed you earlier in deep southwest. They've already done their land use policy, which areas are going to remain pristine, where they're going to do their farming, which areas are possible locations for tourism destination. This is what the village looks like from the air. I took this just 10 days ago. And this is where the signing ceremony took place with Vice President Ali Kok. They have actually been running this area for the last 5 years as a community-owned conservation area with 600,000 hectares. The headwaters of the Essequibo, and they've now applied for it to be included in the National Protected Area System. And that was the signing ceremony there for the National Protected Areas Commission. Again, some scenes. And of course, our flagship tourism destination, and the Kumaro Falls and the Kurupong River. Ancient Patamona Hospital just outside of Anai, where the last Carib battles took place with the Patamonas. And this mountain here, which is one of my favorites, as you see, if you use your imagination, it looks like the head of an eagle. From this side, it looks like a bottle. And when you look at it coming from this way, it looks like a porpoise leaping out of the jungle. And it has a lot of spiritual significance to the Wakishana. Some of the areas which are again untapped, the Tranman Cliffs in the Upper Mazruni, the Upper Riva. This is a 25-foot anaconda which has a symbiotic relationship with the tour guide. Blend of modern and traditional touch, but this is powered by solar. You can see the light, photovoltaics. And modern, this is in our Anarputaga Valley, and this is the homestead. So you're looking not only for large-scale investment, but also improving the livelihoods of people in the hinterland and on the coast, and making them adaptable and self-reliant as possible. Orienting the young generation, these are students learning about mangroves and the children of Masakanyar who are moving, transitioning in a sense from the traditional to the modernity without losing the strength of their culture. Conclusion, the cabinet has established a commission overseeing drainage, traffic management, sustainable urban, rural and hinterland, physical infrastructure renewal, welfare management of the homeless, addicted and the mentally challenged, solid waste management. This is not duplicating an effort with the established sectors, but maintaining oversight and looking at the integration of these. I happen to be the chair of this commission, and we are now in our second year. Oil and gas exploitation, of course, by 2020 is anticipated that we should be pumping oil and gas with all the attendant safeguards, etc., having to be put in place, EITI, etc. And the President at the Paris talks last year committed to an expansion of these protected areas by an additional 2 million hectares. We're looking at the North Ukuluni wetlands, the Tipuis, and some of the conservancies on the coast. as well as some of the important ecosystems in the New River Triangle. Rear Admiral Best will be speaking more about the greening of the economy. This is Bartica, and Eric also. And you look at Bartica as a major pole and catalyst for development linked to many of these regions. It's high ground, easy for construction purposes, and linked to good agricultural land, areas for tourism, etc. And this is a mega farm which is going to be established in Ruknuni by Kirara. Use of technology. I know many of you here are involved in technology. We can use all the help we can in being able to determine, for example, the hydrology of Guyana and how the hydrology and the coast and the conservancies all interact, and how, among all of that, viable settlements, and so on. And on the coast here, looking at the drainage system, Georgetown is 1 meter below sea level, with all the attendant issues. Building capacity in line with national needs. You heard the President speak about this yesterday. The university has to be a catalyst to satisfy the national needs. And the principal of the Burmese campus is also here with Professor Griffith. Again, I re-emphasize the need for national reconciliation, national security, and national development plan. And how is it that Diaspora can contribute? My view is contribution to the refining of the Green State Development Strategy, making available the relevant expertise, capacity building of local human resources through sabbaticals and specifically tailored skills training in Guyana and overseas, investing in the growth poles, infrastructure, agriculture, agro-processing, tourism, edutainment, administrative, logistic, and financial services, mentoring and shepherding of young entrepreneurs, and enhancing the image of Guyana overseas as a developing country, providing opportunities for sustainable green economic growth, facilitating national reconciliation and social cohesion. So, that's it. Thank you very much.
Types of audience. I've tried to reduce it as much as I can, and I'll go through fairly quickly and take the questions and try to put everything in perspective. I start here because this is a mosaic. This was taken from part of the world, but the point I want to make here is that the way I see the future development, we create a mosaic between our forests and development. And in essence, we're talking about harmonizing man and nature, bringing the two together. And there's an interesting concept I was looking at recently is also to bring climate change advocacy and oil exploration together in the same group rather than being enemies outside of the group. So what's my objective is to encourage you to invest in Bartica. That's the whole idea. Consider investing in Bartica. President Rachel did two things. He instructed me to prepare a draft plan to green Bartica and a draft plan to green Guyana. Since then, quite a lot has happened. A lot of building has been done on what I presented initially to him. He said nationally that the Bartica will be the model town for Guyana. So I focused a lot on what the model should look like, and that's what I'll present in a brief context. However, this I think is the visioning process. We're talking about the green Bartica, green economy, the green state. The green state is relatively new. A lot of work is being done on it. I'll attempt a definition of the green state, which is my definition. But the green economy has been well defined before by UNEP, so that's how they're ready. So we very see we move from a green Bartica, green economy, a green state, but it may not necessarily happen that way. What is actually happening right now is this: we have the green Bartica, the green economy is on the way, and the green state is being developed. The whole green state development strategy is being done by UNEP, so all three are happening at the same time. This is what is actually happening. What I believe should be the end state is that we should have an integrated approach where the greening of Bartica, the green economy, the green state, if you look at them, we have the greening of Bartica as the model that will drive the green economy, and the green economy eventually create a green state. But then at every instant, they will always be operated integratedly. So in my view, this should be the end state for Guyana. If you look at the Constitution, the preamble, Article 36, 25 and 14, it really sets the stage for a green economy because it imposes upon us to deal with the environment in a positive manner. And what they do also is that they create what I would call a platform for a green economy. So In other words, the government can situate its green economy within a constitutional context because the Constitution has asked us and imposed upon us to do that. So the Green State Development Strategy, this is President Granger's words. He said it will be developed as a template for green Guyana. And this is in his booklet in the Green State. This is my working definition for Green State. The way I see it is I see the Green State as one that adheres to international environmental agreements, one that protects regional geological features, while sustaining economic prosperity, environmental security, and social well-being. You will recognize that what I've done there is to add on to the UNEP definition of green economy. And what I took is President Clinton's words from his document about how he saw the Green State. So, in essence, the way he sees it, there's an international context, a regional context, and a national context. Bring the three together, this is a working definition that I presented to UNEP for their own consideration. What do we mean by a green economy? This is President Granger, and it's not dissimilar from UNEP. Essentially, it's a three-pillar approach. We talk about socio-economic issues, economic prosperity, environmental security, and social well-being. And we call this a three-pillar approach. There are other pillars out there, other approaches are 5 pillars, 6 pillars. Some are talk about move to ecological interrelationships. Some talk about ecological democracy. Some talk about climate justice. All those things are expanded explanations of green economy. So suffice to say, this is what President Granger said, but UNEP is essentially the same thing. And if you juxtapose that to the working definition of the Green State, you'll see we just build it. You could mathematize it, and you'll have increased human well-being plus social equity equal, or the function of reducing environmental risks plus ecological scarcities. So you can look at it from different perspectives. Another way of looking at the green economy is to consider it as decarbonizing the productive sectors in the country. If you look at it from decarbonizing, you see green economy from that context. So there are various contexts within which you can look at the green economy. So the Green State Development Strategy, according to the booklet so far, will guide Guyana's economic and socio-cultural development over the next 15 years. So that's a decade and a half. Perhaps by the end of the process, it will move beyond a decade and a half. However, we do find similarities between the pillars, conditions, and policies and benefits of the conventional green economy and the current content, principles, themes, finance and monitoring, evaluation of the Green State Development Strategy. So what UNEP is doing at the moment, we find similarities between what is within the green economy. So again, as UNEP rolls out the Green State Development Strategy, we still have to look at the green economy and see how they relate. In my own view, the green economy is like the blood within our veins that will take Guyana where we need to go. And if you sense a bias anytime, it's deliberate. So what is the link between the green economy and climate change? I think we need to at least put it in context. Climate change challenges the green economy because it results in environmental risks, ecological scarcities, and social disparities. So just cognitively to have that in our minds that there is a link between the green economy and climate change. How do we transition? I think we need 3 things. We need technology, people, and management. We need to identify and apply the right technology, the right footprint in the Guyana context. We need people, and I mentioned social equity, social equality, inclusion, improve well-being, protection of female parents, etc. And we need to reduce inequality. And in management, very important article in our Constitution, Article 13, which talks about inclusive democracy. We need decentralization, fiscal incentives, among others, and green subsidies. These are just some of the items I mentioned here in terms of how we transition to green economy. Technology, people, and management. A carbon neutral approach, perhaps Guyana can, because it's a small state, small economy, end up with a carbon neutral economy. Therefore, that creates a product that Guyana can identify internationally. So we can do it from the back end. We can say, listen, our economy is carbon neutral, therefore everything we produce, we can put a label and say it's a carbon neutral product. So we have that opportunity because we have a small economy. So let me talk about the Green Biological Development and Land Use Plan. Talk about that quickly. But Bartica now is about 65 square miles, so it's fairly large. And the president, like I said, gave a directive. We did some background work, map analysis, ground analysis, look at economics, among other things. And then, well, let me just show you, this is Bartica then, this is Bartica now, in terms of scale. Most of it is forested, but most of it is not harvestable forest, which is being harvested out. The trees are now young and going back, so it's been logged out. But the watersheds and the watersheds remain. There are a lot of trails that could be enhanced into roads, not all of them. So Bartica presents a unique opportunity for us to model the green economy. And as the gentleman said, it has the substructure for buildings. You can put 10, 15, 30 buildings there. It's like Manhattan, it's on a road. So we have an opportunity to model here. The drivers, we looked at some probable patterns of global and local outcomes. We identified mortality, housing development, school dropouts, business stats, etc. And then we recognized there was uncertainty, economic uncertainty in the areas of fisheries, energy, mining, quarrying. And this led us to conclude what we should do is to diversify the economy of Bartica because it's heavily dependent on gold. And in that diversification process, we recognize we have a good resource base, good soils, multiple creeks, rich forests, freshwater minerals. In essence, it has everything that is required to drive and develop a small economy. The vision is the modernization and sustainable industrialization of the natural capital of Bartica to create a good life. So what's the concept? We believe that we should divide Bartica into two, a north and south. So northern Bartica, we would apply a 70-30 ratio to development to forest. So 20% of the forest should remain, and 70% of the forest will be used in a mosaic for development of modernizing North Bartica. And the South Bartica, we use a 50-50 ratio between forest and development. Key activities, obviously we need municipal bylaws to give it implementation and for the zoning, environmental building, new building codes, revenue streams, new financial streams. And Bartica is now a town, so the town council should be enabled to help develop the community. The difficulty we have is that it's a new town council. The councils are new, they're part-timers, they're not full-timers, so that's something for consideration in the future. That if we go into local government, we should consider having full-time local government officials as opposed to part-time. So that's something that we have to look at also. This is Bartica. This is modernizing the northern part of Bartica. What we propose here is to create a tourist zone. That's what we call it, Commanding Heights in Bartica. A new housing zone. A this is a new recreation area. And this we put all the sports facilities, swimming pools, racetrack, a modern racetrack, not the one behind Timeri Airport. You can build one or two golf courses. The point I'm making is that you want to have investment opportunities. It's not necessarily for Barticians, it's that there's a product that you can sell. So you can build golf courses in here, you can have a modern racetrack. Also have a semi-industrial zone to move all the construction in Bartica out of there to a new zone. We also identified the area for alternative housing and a shopping area. We put all your malls and different shops. So you move it out of Bartica. And particularly these heights, these commanding heights, are used for tourism because they're very scenic if you look at the Mazuna River, Guyana River district. So this is modernizing northern Bartica, and in addition to that, we recommend a new sewer system for Bartica. Guyana, we tend to use the individual systems. Everything goes to the septic tank, and then you have these big trucks come to move it out. So we have no modern sewer system in Guyana. Georgia is a very old sewer system, so we can introduce a new sewer system in Bartica. So this is the northern portion of it. This is about 14 square miles. Just to orient you, this is the main road, the Bartica road here. And these are just some highlights showing some creeks. This is an actual plan of the system of Bartica already designed by my colleague, Charles Griffith. and the industrialization of South Bartica, transition to South Bartica. Let's say we want to have a 50-50 ratio between development of forest and South Bartica. What we're supposed to do there is to divide it into two halves, eastern half and southern and western half. The eastern half of Bartica, it flows towards the Essequibo River, so we find the soil is slightly different, so you can get your cash crop agriculture products. The western half you can plant more like corn and soy on the other half. So we allocated approximately 10,000 acres to 15 crops. And this is what we identified that can be grown, subject to confirmation from the economic studies, obviously. But this would be proposed to grow there. And this is what it looks like. This is the 10,000 acres I just mentioned. And this is where we propose to grow crops. And it's already been fairly defined in terms of its boundaries. Here is the landfill sites we identified for Bartica, 2 of them. So we shouldn't have a problem in the next 100 years. But this is now, technology may very well change. We may not need a landfill site. We're able to dispose of the waste using a different system. But we do have the sites identified. This area here we identified for a clay brick factory because there's a lot of clay in this area. And we believe that there's a very good possibility of, I don't want to say bring back the clay brick factory. I want to say, instead of trying to use our forests to build wooden homes, we should use clay. Right. Because a clay brick house will outlive your mortgage, and that's the selling point. Yeah. I just came back from South Africa on a private visit, and most of the, I visited about 10 clay brick factories in South Africa. Technology is there, and we have the clay. I think I remember from school, sandy and clay areas. Yeah. So I don't think we should cut our forests to build wooden houses any longer. I think we should build natural soil and fire them and get the clay. So we can have a clay brick factory here. On this side, the western portion, this is the soya, corn, soy. We identified perhaps some tilapia growing here because we can employ women here. This is where current mining is being done here, and this will remain. And there's a product called feldspar. I'm not a technical person, but I have a colleague that worked with me on this project, we've been talking about it, that there's a possibility of us manufacturing our own fertilizer using feldspar as an input. I won't speak more technically in it, but I just want to mention there's a possibility. So this is what you also straighten the road, the Bartica-Batara road, so it reduces time. We gain about 20 minutes by straightening the Bartica-Batara road. But I want to contextualize this in terms of linkages. There's a Perica to Goshen road that is on the books. And if we go Perica to Goshen, Goshen by carry to Bartica, yes, you create a linkage, but you also need a link from Linden to Bartica. Right. Because you cannot, if you have a Perica to Goshen to Bartica linkage, and you don't have a Linden to Bartica, then you talk about economic starvation. Right. And then we get strife. And we have strife, and we won't have any social cohesion. So the planners have to balance what they're doing. And I hope that I make a point often so that the planners can recognize that you need the Bartica, the Linden to Bartica. And there's alignment already existing, and Mr. Johnson talked about that. So in this area here, this is a 50, any agriculture here will get 50 to 50 ratio to agricultural production. These blank spaces is the natural forest that will remain. So we have the natural forest remaining here, so the region, and the forest that we're going to use here for agriculture will be a 50-50 ratio between forest and agriculture. So in other words, we create that mosaic for development. This is the western half, and we talked about mostly corn and soil. We might for feldspar, potassium into fertilizer. You can get potassium also from the tilapia, the mining tilapia. Tourism, there's a possible lake here, and I think this area here. An old Bartician told us years ago, there was a lake, there's a girl she played, there was a lake here. And if you drive the road, you find at that point, it's always tends to be underwater even in the dry season. So there may be an underground lake here that we can use. But to come back in the tourism area, the things you can do, we can build a spectre under the Mazuni River. We can build a cable car from Bartica over to Essequibo as tourist attractions. So there are a number of things you can do in Bartica. It has the potential for all of that. This is another view of on the plan. These areas identified are where we propose to have the factories. So agricultural products and factories to move them into products, and the factories to develop the products develop the crops into products. So we identify these areas for the factories. And we're looking at, I want to transition into how do we actually green it? And we talk about energy efficiency, energy conservation. Generally, we want to start with conservation and efficiency. Retrofitting of buildings, enacting bylaws to govern our spaces. It's a very small term. It should be difficult to retrofit, but there's a cost. We look at solar farms, micro, mini hydros, retrofitting, climate proofing, and this is climate proofing new investments, retrofitting current investments. We want to maximize sunlight, maximum use of climate-friendly products, etc. In other words, we have this 80 by 40 system that is rectangular or maybe some shape. I think we have to move from that system and try to set it up in such a way that we maximize wind direction and sunlight. I think Camp and Guyana is a very good example of the houses that were built since in the 50s. We noticed they are at 100. That's to get maximum wind coming in. I don't think we can maintain strictly the torrent system where you have an 80 by 40. In Zimbabwe, I haven't seen any house that is 80 by 40. Nobody is allocates 80 by 40. It's at least 200 by 200. You really can't do much in the 80 by 40. So it's something for us to think about as a country. We looked at clean energy. And this here includes renewable energy. So before I think the better options are clean energy, so you have a combination of clean and renewable. And I mentioned subdivision, pedestrian orient, redirection, and spatial opportunity. So the energy platform is clean energy, which includes renewable energy. I mentioned 50-50 ratio. We're going to maintain the undulating features of particle. If you go to particle and you walk around, you'll find that you find almost Sioux on the road because there's what they did some time ago is instead of building a bridge over the creek, they filled the creek up and build houses in the creek level. So I think we have a tendency to try to get rid of things. We have to maintain the infrastructure. So, and Charles will talk about the 100-year floodplain. That's what you set your 100-year floodplain before you do development. So if you do it the correct way, then we maintain the creeks, maintain undulating features. And we don't have experience in building on the sides of hills. And that's a technology that we have to start to manage. So we don't cut down the hill, we build on the side. So we can enhance natural features among other things. And I mentioned the agroforested mosaic we want to create. Now some key executive consideration. One of the things we find, and this is land ownership, is the state owns most of the land. But the land is leased out. But the state is the owner. So we think the president should consider vesting some or all the lands into the market municipality. It's a major departure from how we do business in here. We're very centralized, and that's come from our colonial past. As we decentralize, we don't have to decentralize not only some services, but all the services. But what this will do to the new municipality is immediately bring income stream into market. It's like your baby. You christen the child, you buy a nice little gold band and give it to the child. Because generating revenues will be the most important activity of any town in order to manage its services and provide services. So we recommend that. But forestry, GGMC, and GLNSC are the people who mostly are the landlords in the area. I had some preliminary discussion with forestry, GGMC, and GLNSC. The first thing they said to me, man, we're going to lose revenue. I said, you're not losing, Guyana's gaining. You're not losing revenue. But we're going to have people who are going to be on it like, oh, you really employ them. So really and truly, you're not losing any. And this is the land situation in Bartico. These square boxes, these are forest leases. And these here are mining leases. So the mining for, this is stone mining, mostly stone mining, not gold mining, or quarry mining. So all the land, almost all the land is owned by the state in some capacity. So for Bartico to develop, that decision must be made on the land ownership. Financing options, you can look at these public-private partnerships, seed capital, cooperatives, municipal bonds, direct investment, diaspora investment, yes, revolving fund. And I just want to talk a bit about the alternative energy. I think we should consider vertical power and light, and we should move to a system where the GPL is responsible only for transmission, and we go to maybe a competitive bidding system to see who can produce energy at the cheapest cost for vertical. You may have heard me before, and I tend to say without, I don't have anything against GPL, but I think the G is the problem, the Guyana is the problem. I think we should move to decentralize and privatize a lot of these services so we can have a better product for our citizens. We need a large hydropower to power not only vertical, Linden and Lethem. The engineers talked about that, so we can have that. The already road from Lethem, vertical Linden, Eureka Ocean Ferry to vertical. And I skipped the generation. I'll come to phase 2, the next steps, quickly. I talk about vesting the lands in vertical, locating the project for continuity, and preparing the project to develop a master plan for vertical. This is the outline plan. So, how can the diaspora be engaged? We believe this is the next most important thing, financing the economic unit studies of what we've identified. Unless we go to the point where we actually do the economic studies, the CBA cost benefit analysis, we wouldn't know what we're suggesting, whether it can work or not. So this is we have to complete the economic studies. That's where we are with this project. And this is where you can invest. We also want to have finance the marketing strategies for vertical. And at the end of it, we want to create what I like to call investment packages. At the end of this process, we should have a set of investment packages that the town council can sell to an investor. And the investor takes the risk to invest in a particular area or not. So in order to get there, we need to complete the economic studies. This is just a process we need to go through the plan, among other things, but just to remind you, this is perhaps the most important aspect, economic studies. We also need to identify the startup units because you can't do everything at the same time. What would be the startup units to start to bring vertical? And again, that will come from the economic studies, so we complete those studies. There are 4 time periods in this project, 5, 10, 15, and 20 years, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Presenters, participants, invited guests. The title of my presentation is Global Warming. I have a lot of slides and I will do my best to just run it through. What is global warming? It's a continued rise in the average temperature of the Earth's climatic system. Where is this temperature increase coming from? Is it from the solar, from the sun? No, it's not from the sun. Why? Because since 1970, output from the sun has been measured by satellite. And what they found that there hasn't been any increase. So it's coming from something else, from human activity. The warming during the past 30 years cannot be attributed to an increase in the solar energy. It is due to human activities. Global warming is induced by greenhouse gases, GHGs, carbon dioxide, methane, ozone, nitrous oxide. Carbon dioxide comprises 90-26%, causes 90-26% of global warming. Methane 4 to 9%. Nitrous oxide, which comes from fertilizer, 1%. Methane, as we know, comes from animal drop-ins, wetland, and from rice cultivation. Right? CO2 is the largest component of, contributes to the largest component of the greenhouse gases. So we need to control CO2. The current worldwide status is that there's a chemical imbalance in the level of CO2 in our international atmosphere, which has resulted significantly in global warming. Human activities are disturbing the Earth's processes and cycle that controls the Earth climate. So we need to control CO2 emission. The carbon cycle that we learned in secondary school and also at the university is not a cycle anymore. There is chemical imbalance in the CO2, amount of CO2 that is emitted to the atmosphere. So it's no longer a cycle. Global warming, origin, vehicles also contribute to global warming in that combustion of fossil fuel results in production of CO2. Electricity is often produced by burning fossil fuels. CO2 also comes from the combustion of coal. These fuels all contain high percentage of carbon. Fossil fuel burners produce about 3/4 of the increase in CO2 from human activity. Coal burning responsible for 43%, oil 34%, gas 18%, cement 4.9%, and gas flaring 0.7%. Now the benchmark for CO2 is 400 ppm. Accordingly, this is likely the first time at that place model where it was measured, the amount of CO2 that was emitted is far greater than that was expected. Now, deforestation can also result in global warming. We know the forest is a sink for CO2. It also produces CO2. Plants respire, it produces CO2, right? So if we remove our forests, we are going to remove that CO2 sink. Forest degradation is also responsible for CO2 emission. So deforestation also removes biodiversity and affects other ecosystems as well. Now, land change can also contribute to global warming in terms that if we remove the forest and we use it for pasture, we are going to significantly reduce forest cover, so we are reducing our CO2 sink. Global warming effects. Global warming effect has manifested itself in what? In melting of ice caps, glacier, rising sea levels, flooding, intense unseasonal rainfall, intense hurricane. The temperature of our planet has risen by 1 to 2 degrees Celsius over the past 30 years. This is due to the melting of the ice cap. The Arctic is warming several times faster than most of the planet. The release of fresh water into the ocean has resulted in an increase in the volume of the water in our oceans. Global warming effects, rise in temperature, as I've mentioned before, an increase in 1 to 2 degrees Celsius. Now this shows that there has been an increase in the rise in temperature. There has been an increase in temperature as a result of global warming from 1860 until 2017. There has been an increase in the temperature due to global warming. Now, while some regions are receiving less rainfall and suffering longer and more droughts, other regions of the world are experiencing much higher level of rainfall. So you have droughts, you have also some regions are experiencing more rainfall than the others, and you also have droughts. At North Poles, more and more of the ice caps are melting because of global warming. Now, satellite data imaging shows that the perennial ice cover has decreased by 9% over the decade. And if you look at this picture, in 1993, we see, if you look at the left, we see the perennial ice cover there. Now in 2000, you see that there's a significant decrease in the perennial ice cover on Mount Kilimanjaro, Tanzania in Africa. There's significant reduction in the perennial ice cover. Effects of global warming. Unusual or extreme weather events are happening more often. So over the past 50 years, we have very hot days and very hot nights, and seldom very cold days and cold nights. Right? We also have heat waves. Effects of global warming continue. Rise in sea level. There's a rise in sea level because of the melting of the ice cap. The volume of the ocean has increased so that there is more water. It has risen about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. And this curve shows an increase in the rise in sea level from 1880 to 2000. Right, so there has been significant increase in the sea level. Effects of global warming, catastrophic hurricane. We know that we have frequent hurricanes around the world, in the Caribbean, USA, in the period June to August. Ivan, which has devastated Grenada, 90% of Grenada was destroyed in 2004. Guyana experienced flooding in 2005. That was due to global warming. The flooding in Louisiana in USA 2005. And we have had several intense hurricanes in the Caribbean, which they were given specific names for the past 20 years. These have all been due to global warming. So there is an urgent international need to curb global warming. We need to reduce the level of CO2 and other greenhouse gases. CO2 emission would need to be reduced by more than 80% relative to the peak level. We need to burn less fossil fuel. Prevention. How can we prevent global warming? We can use car less and public transportation more, use smaller vehicles. And this is noteworthy in Europe and England. They use a lot of small cars. In the Caribbean, we tend to use big vehicles. We like to, make a show. We want big vehicles, But we are contributing to global warming by putting out more CO2. We need to use smaller cars, smaller vehicles. We need to employ the policy of reforestation, forest degradation, so that we can improve carbon storage, improve crop and pasture management, use more efficient electrical equipment. So we can use solar panels so that we don't consume fossil, there's less need for fossil fuel, so less CO2. And that's a solar panel there, established in the interior. We have a lot of solar panels that have been established around the country. A lot of households have been using solar panels, supermarkets, which is good. And we need to continue in that vein. Global warming, prevention, reforestation, I've already spoken about that. We can plant trees, reforestation, so that we can improve carbon capture. The idea is to improve carbon capture. The forest is a source CO2 sinks for carbon dioxide. We can improve crop and pasture management, which increase carbon storage in the soil. Policies, we can put forward policies to mitigate global warming and climate change. In 1992, a body of framework within the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, was established. And this framework, through this framework, several protocols were established through several conventions, such as the Kyoto Protocol 1997, the Belay Accord 2007, Copenhagen Accord 2009, and we had the Red Plus Protocol, the Paris Accord in 2017. The Kyoto Protocol was amongst the first, and the objective of this protocol was to, first, there must be a reduction of CO2, seek alternative energy, so that you have less CO2 emissions, stop deforestation, improving forest management and forest conservation. Then we had the Bali Accord, and this was in Indonesia. Countries agreed to a course of action for a new negotiated process to tackle climate change and global warming. The goal was to make decisions on what would be included in a new agreement after the Kyoto Protocol. Then we had the Copenhagen Accord, commitments to reduce emission and long-term funding plans for supporting action to mitigate climate change. And we had the Paris Accord. The Paris Accord that came out of the convention in July 2017. The objectives were to each country determines plans and regularly reports its own contribution it should make in order to mitigate global warming. Right now, the bad thing about that convention was that the US president rejected the agreement. Right? President Donald Trump rejected that, and that caused widespread condemnation in the European Union and many sectors in the United States. France plans to stop the use of coal in 2022, and also to put a five-year plan to ban all petrol and diesel vehicles by 2040. And we also had the Red Plus Protocol. The Red Plus Protocol was first read, RED, in 2005, that the Red Plus is reduction in deforestation and degradation. It was first read, RED, reduction in deforestation in 2005. Then in 2007, it was REDD. That was when you had the Bali Convention. Then in 2009, the Copenhagen Accord, it was REDD+. That is reduction, deforestation, de-degradation, and also a plus. A plus indicates the services that the forest will provide, such as carbon capture, etc. Now, how can the Caribbean diaspora assist in preventing global warming? We can have the formation of an international Caribbean diaspora committee on anti-global warming, which can strongly petition against countries such as the US and England and some of the European countries by the United Nations to forcefully ensure that protocols such as Kyoto and Montreal are followed, also to ensure that CO2 levels and other greenhouse gases is below the threshold limit. Eminent members of the Committee on Climate Change can visit the Caribbean yearly to give lectures and updates on the progress of the committee, in addition to meet with the President and Government Minister to render advice on global warming. Policies such as reforestation, sustainable forest management, use of renewable energy in place of fossil fuels should be intensified. There should be significant improvement in our sea defense infrastructure. Mangrove restoration should be continued. Research in renewable energy, measuring the CO2 sequestrating abilities of plants, should be intensified at the University of Guyana. The establishment of a wind farm should be a must for Guyana. In conclusion, global warming has affected the entire world and will continue to affect. It is now coined as global warming. It can be reduced significantly provided protocols are followed. It is predicted that the temperature of the Earth will rise 6 degrees Celsius in the next century if global warming is not prevented. Thank you.